If it was a random player, we probably wouldn't be talking about it maybe to the extent we are, but it's Antonio Brown. We've seen Antonio Brown force his way out of teams, refuse to play for this reason or that reason, force his way out of Pittsburgh, force his way out of Oakland. It's just been a consistent thing with him. Obviously got released from the Patriots after a bunch of outside the field issues came up. We've seen him have interactions and run-ins with police. We've seen him throwing things at moving company trucks. It's a constant thing with him.
He's basically Conor McGregor.
Well, I think it's Conor McGregor, but I think there's a little bit of intent behind what Conor does. I don't think that's necessarily what it is when it comes to Antonio Brown. Now,
I agree with that.
His team is coming out and, saying a couple things about why it went down, why some of these things happened the way that they did when it comes to the details. But let's get into it. Let's show everybody what exactly we're talking about here. This was crazy.
It really was crazy.
This, I think, is kind of the best view and the best entire situation of what happened. The longest clip that we have, at least. This is from someone on the sidelines to set it up. And I need to turn my Discord off because it just keeps making noise.
I heard that.
Get out of there, Discord. But Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing the lowly New York Jets. Obviously, the Bucs are shorthanded. Leonard Fournette not available. Chris Godwin out for the year. Antonio Brown coming off an injury from several weeks ago. He did play last week, and he is playing this week. In the third quarter, something happens on the sideline, which we will get into, and it sets Antonio Brown off. He's clearly agitated, and this ensues. Now, Mike Evans, right? Mike Evans trying to talk to AB, trying to tell him, hey, man, don't take your jersey off or anything like that. And it does not work. Turn it down because it's not super important.
Shout out to Mike Evans for trying to keep this dude in check, but it was clear that wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm. So he takes his jersey off, throws it, starts walking away. Keep in mind, the play clock's running because the game's being played. Like on the other end of the field, like the game is actively being played right now. And he throws his stuff out there, and then he's about to walk across the field. Now, keep in mind, the story right now from Antonio Brown's camp is that the Buccaneers asked him to go back in the game. He said, I'm injured. My ankle's too injured. I can't play. And they told him, well, if you're refusing to go in the game, then get out of here, kind of thing. And that's what made this happen. Well, for someone with an injured ankle, he certainly isn't limping, and it certainly didn't prevent him from starting to skip across the end zone and run out of the gate. Antonio Brown walking across the field as the fucking game is being played.
What an idiot, dude. There's his hurt ankle. Hurt ankle. I mean, really, Antonio Brown?
And saying goodbye and peacing out as he runs back to the locker room. Now, in the immediate aftermath, Bruce Arians gets asked this in a press conference, and he responds.
All right, that's the end of the story. Let's talk about the guys that went out there and won the game.
Oh, well, hold on.
You need to back it up. Yeah.
He is no longer a Buck. All right, that's the end of the story. Let's talk about the guys that went out there and won the game.
Okay, and can you talk about that final drive? I mean, obviously.
So that was it. That's all Bruce Arians wanted to say after the game. He gets asked a question, and he's super short with reporters, which I don't think is necessarily the greatest way to go about it. When something like that happens, I do think it kind of needs to be addressed in some way, shape, or form. He elaborated a little bit today, but of course, the GOAT had a much more reason and the kind of take you would expect from Tom Brady, don't you think, Jeremy?
Yep, absolutely, 100%. This is exactly what I thought he would say.
Yeah, here he is.
It's obviously a difficult situation, and I think we all want him to just think everybody should find hopefully do what they can to help him in ways that he really needs it. And we all love him, we care about him deeply. We want to see him be at his best, and unfortunately won't be with our team, but we have a lot of friendships that will last. And again, I think the most important thing about football are the relationships with your friends and your teammates, and they go beyond the field. And You know, I think everyone should be very compassionate and empathetic toward, some very difficult things that are happening.
Now, to put this in perspective, Tom Brady's lost one of his top wide receivers. He's lost a running back. The defense is completely banged up. They just struggled. Tom Brady needed to engineer a game-winning drive in the final seconds to beat the Jets. And it was incredible, I thought, to be honest, what he was able to do. But after all that, I would be a little bit pissed if I was Tom Brady, if I stuck my neck out, if I did everything I could to keep AB here. And that's his response.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady's went over and beyond for AB, in which AB's been pretty good, all things considered, by the standards AB has created for himself. Because, and I think Mike Tomlin deserves a lot of credit for dealing with AB for however long he dealt with him. Kind of kept him in line, and one of the best receivers in the NFL. So shout out to Mike Tomlin for that. Got to acknowledge that. But there was nobody that was going to touch AB for various amount of reasons. And then Brady lobbied for him to get there to Tampa. Clearly, it was a good decision from the results they've seen on the field. No doubt about that. There has been some controversies, but I got to think Tom Brady's really pissed off about this whole thing. I got to think he's really not happy. He's like, dude, I put my reputation on the line for you, and you have done now. Publicly, he'll never say that, but privately, I'm imagining he's very upset about this.
Yeah, I would have to imagine. Now, some stuff did come out, and I wanted to play a little bit of this from Ian Rappaport, which kind of explains what Antonio Brown's side is saying.
Until Tom Brady and others stepped in, and he ended up a member of the Bucs, but hard to imagine anyone taking a shot at him now. But let's examine how we got here. From what I understand, and Bruce Arians laid some of it out, they told the Buccaneers coaches, told Antonio Brown to get into the game. He refused to get into the game. He was tossed from the sideline and then released after the game when Bruce Arians announced, or at least Bruce Arians announced it after the game, that he is no longer a member of the Buccaneers. They talked to people close to Antonio Brown, and they paint a different story for whatever it is worth. Of course, we know Antonio Brown's ankle not allow him to practice Thursday and Friday. He looked fine pregame, looked good during the game, and then he felt like his ankle was not good enough to play. And in his mind, that is why he refused to go out on the field. But then he was still tossed from the sidelines and then eventually released. Will be interesting to see what further action, if any, comes from Antonio Brown, if he really does believe his ankle was too injured for him to play.
Now, what do you think about that, Jeremy? The idea that they told him basically get off the sidelines if you're not going to go back in.
I mean, I don't really have a problem with the player being told that, but he still made it about him. He still made a big hoopla over it, and that's the problem. You created a distraction for your team while they were down. You created a problem for your team that's injury-ridden, and now you've created all these questions that they're going to have to deal with after the fact, all because of how you acted. If he just would have walked off the field, maybe with a trainer, you know what I mean? None of this is happening. He created this. There's no one else to blame but him. He did this. So if you were told to leave the field, that's fine. It's your actions and your antics that led to this. You made it about you. And that is what it comes down to. And that's been the Antonio Brown way for a long time. So he's to blame. He's the reason to blame. The interesting thing I think about all this is Bruce Arians saying he's no longer a Buck, but like we said, Schefter said that he's not been cut at this point.
Yeah, so here's that tweet from Adam Schefter, which was only about an hour and a half ago, maybe almost 2 hours by now. Bucks did not officially release Antonio Brown on today's wire per source. There are ongoing discussions with the NFL about how to move ahead in this situation. Don't know what that means. Hasn't really been any follow-up that I've seen. Just because they didn't release him today doesn't mean they don't still intend to. But yeah, maybe the fact that there might be some concerns over we try to make this guy play injured, whatever that may be, maybe that's on the table as well. Maybe they're hesitant to because of that. I don't know. I do know that I think to give Antonio Brown the benefit of the doubt is a little naive.
He hasn't earned it. He hasn't earned it.
You know, if you've been kicked out of 11 different bars in your city, right? maybe the problem's you. It's not the bartender.
Yeah.
It's not just, oh, well, they just don't like people that get all wound up there. No, maybe you're the problem. And that's the case with Antonio Brown right now. And it is, it's a shame because the guy's so freaking talented. But it's also funny how he can get alleged to do all these different things to people or to movers or to women. But it always ends up coming down to what happens on the field, or with players or in the NFL when it comes to whether Antonio Brown's vilified or not.
Yep. And I do think the media is going to take this situation right here and be 10 times more angry at him because of the fake vaccination card rather than if they would be normally. They probably like, oh, this guy needs help and we need to. Now it's like, oh, he's the worst thing ever. And their anger is going to be amplified a lot because of all of that. And because that's how the media operates, because the media full of losers and NPCs. So I do think that the anger from the media is going to be amplified based on their social justice nonsense and their identity politics crap and their pro jab nonsense that they're all on. So that'll be an element to it. But the media is really angry right now at him, and I think I think we know why exactly. Because Antonio Brown's been like this. He's always been like this. This is not surprising.
Yeah, normally they'd be going like, oh, mental health, CTE. They'd be saying all this stupid stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they would normally be pushing. But yeah, you're right. It is probably going to be a lot about the vaccine card nonsense because he did get wrapped up in that.
Yep. 100%. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. So,
we do have a $10 super chat from probably John Matrix there. Cancel Bruce Arians for firing a black man. Where's BLM?
Yeah, racism. It's racism.
How dare he?
So amazing how the media, there. No. If there was no vax card situation, there probably would be. But now that the vax card's there, that trumps racism. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's how their mind works. So that's pretty funny, actually.